Hey you guys, welcome and welcome back to Our Awaken. So for today's topic, we're going to be talking about just religion, the purpose of religion, and just getting all into that. So just to get started, I just want to give like my perspective on my ideology, just to kind of give you guys an understanding of the person that you're getting this commentary from. So I'm a person where I feel like I like to get down to like the foundation of just human existence, in the sense of when God first put humans on this earth, we were put on here bare naked with nothing. So ultimately, when humans were put on this earth, we were here in existence just through divine connection without any systems, structures, rules, or anything like that, right? So that's like the way that I think. God put us on this earth with everything that we need in order to survive, in order to just, like live life. And then, of course, as time went on, humans started to evolve. We started to develop things, technology, systems, hierarchies, and all of that. But before that, we were all on equal plane. There was no one better than anyone. There was nobody that you had to look up to or anything like that. At the foundation, we were all equal to each other. There wasn't, oh, men are better than women or women are better than men. There wasn't, oh, you're poor, you're rich, you're a slave, you're royalty. There wasn't none of that. We were all just simple, plain humans. So that is just my understanding of the beginning of human existence. Now, when it comes to the whole idea of religion, right? I see religion as a way of people basically joining together to congregate and to basically socialize on the understanding of building morality and operating from God consciousness. It's like a gathering of just wisdom, and it comes down to like people's own understandings and experiences of their divine connection, of what they feel is like the best way to show up as a human being, to really like create a moral code or a way of consciousness that you should operate in that will reflect the God energy and God consciousness. So with that being said, I do feel like religion does play an important role in society. And the reason why I say that, especially now, is because I feel like back in like the day, early times, I feel like you didn't have anything to go off of based off of your just life existence, and then you seeing like, okay, through my existence I'm having these experiences that show me that there is a higher source, there is something bigger than myself that is really controlling things, or that, the creator, right? Through their experiences will show them like, okay, there is something bigger than me that I don't understand or that I don't see, but I'm aware that there is this greater force, there is this greater energy that is controlling things, that is creating things. And then when you think of just the formation of religion, I know there are people who were prophets, so they were having visions or they were having these revelations, which I've said in a previous video, which was my Sinners movie breakdown, but like the spiritual side. I feel like everyone, and I don't know if I can say everyone, but I know that I can speak for myself personally, but also observing other people's just like testimonies outside of myself, just talking about how they receive revelation. So I understand that there are people who are capable of receiving prophecies, revelations, and just like knowledge through dreams from God, right? And I feel like that requires a level of like calmness of the spirit, cutting out distractions, and really just like being tuned in with yourself in order to receive that information, but to also like understand what to do with it and how to interpret it. But like I said, from my own personal experience, I do feel like people are capable of receiving that type of information. But we live in a world where there are so much distractions. People are indulging in things that really do keep us tuned out of just connecting with our true self and allowing ourselves to embody that God consciousness, God energy, where it keeps you like tapped out of connecting with your higher self. So it makes it harder for people to really like connect to that version of themselves now. But back in the day, like, there weren't really that many distractions. So like in some like stories from different religions, you'll notice how like prophets were isolated, and that's how they were able to gain information in order to bring it back to the people in, you know, like mass form. So it would make sense that because they were in that space of separation, which is usually the space where a person is growing the most, right? Because they are cutting out those distractions, they are allowing information from the divine to come to them. So the people who are referred to as prophets, I feel like that is the role that they've played when it comes to just the formation of religion. And also, I just want to give a quick disclaimer. When I think about religion, I can see the benefit in it. I feel like it provides like this tangible, well, not really, it basically provides like logical reasoning of understanding the divine source. It puts things into a way where you can interpret it and the information is given to you. I feel like it can be a great way to use as reference because it does provide a lot of wisdom from past life experiences, right? But I feel like it is also important for people to live their life in order to gain their own wisdom, to learn things on their own as they go as well. Because based on my just like observation and just like understanding, like I said, I see it as like references to be utilized as wisdom from other past experiences. So there is benefit to different religions, right? And like I said, back when God first put us on this earth, you didn't have religion, you didn't have things that you could refer to as context. And when you think about like just the formation of human existence, right, just in that beginning phase, there wasn't a lot of corruption. Humans were, I would say, like in their purest form compared to now. Like there's too much corruption that is now like intermingled in our everyday lives to where there's a lot of things that have been manipulated, that have been corrupted, that have just been altered from just like the pureness of humans. Now there are so many different like interferences, there are so many different things that we have integrated in our everyday lives that can really deviate us from that God consciousness, things that have been normal. So let's say like the music that we listen to, the vices that are so normalized now, like alcohol, drugs, that do alter your state of consciousness in a negative way. And like I said, the music that speaks words and basically spells of negativity, and that can subconsciously program your mind in a negative way. But I feel like a lot of people don't sometimes understand the influence that I mean, like people talk about it, but like people still listen to the music that's toxic, which they don't see that it's still programming them in a way to operate from a not so like healthy space. And then you have social media, a lot of things that we see that people deem to be normal because of how like common it is, and it's not normal, it's not healthy. Or even just like mindsets people have, the environments that people are in. Like there's so many different things where if you're just placed into it, you can be easily corrupted, versus back in the day things were more so at its purest form. And you know, like people were a lot more connected with nature. There wasn't civilizations and all of that like built yet. So it's like you were still in like the purity of what God has created. So there is less deviation from that God consciousness. And of course, I'm not saying that humans back then were perfect. What I'm trying to say is when you compare the formation of life compared to now, people are operating more in their carnal nature now than they were back then, because we didn't have all these different advancements and all this access to just like so many different things. You know, when they say like when you give people too many options, like people just don't know what to do with it. And we have so many options now, and what I'm trying to say is all those options are not good options. So it can be easy for a person to deviate from like just like that good path. So I'm trying my best not to ramble in this video, but like I'm hoping that everything is going to piece together as I continue talking. So just please bear with me because I'm trying to get to a point. So ultimately, I do believe that religion does serve a good purpose, because back in the day, like I said, like when you were living and just experiencing life, you would then come to an understanding through your experiences that there is a divine source, like there is something greater than you because of the experiences that you're having. Like imagine you're walking through the mountains, or you're just traveling in the wilderness and you happen to come across like the resources that you need, like, or just things that happen that you would deem to be a coincidence or as luck, eventually, like when certain things keep happening, you start to realize like, okay, like there's a greater source than me. So that helps you eventually build faith and understanding in the unseen. But let's say like now, while you have like all these different additions into just like the natural of life that are unnatural, so as people started to advance, it makes sense that religion is there, because after having countless different experiences individually, but then you start to talk about it collectively, you then start to realize like, okay, it's not just me that's experiencing divine just like experiences, like other people are experiencing it. So it makes sense that religion then starts to form, because like I said, religion is basically like people coming together to congregate about God. It's ultimately like a social club of people coming together to congregate about the divine experiences that they are having. And eventually, like the more people are having their own individual experiences, the more people can really like come and really like share their testimonies and things like that. And eventually, as civilization continues to progress, you now have people who are basically like, okay, these are like collective experiences that we as people have been experiencing it. So now it's kind of like a law, or now it's kind of like something that we can include within society to tell people like, hey, this is something that is real. Like it's not something that you can see, but it's something that many are experiencing. So let's basically share that knowledge and that information to people. So that way it's like, okay, when you are a kid, when you just grow up, it's like something that you can pass down to generations, because it is something to be known to be true, but you can't really explain it until you experience it. The reality is it's hard to explain like supernatural things and occurrences to people if they weren't there to witness or experience it with you. You get what I'm saying? So it's kind of like you have to like create a tangible way for people to understand it, which makes sense where you are creating like religious texts and you're creating like Bibles and Qurans and all these things. So that way it's like, okay, now here is something that I can physically hand you for you to then like understand that there is a divine source without you having to just experience it as you're living life, without it being like documented. I hope y'all get what I'm trying to say. So like I said, as generations start to like, you know, come about, so when you have a kid, you're now able to introduce them to that divine source. Even if they haven't had their own experience yet, you're introducing it to them. So it's like in their head that, okay, this is something that is real. This supernatural energy, this God energy, this divine source is something that is real, that you should believe in, even if you don't quite fully understand it yet and you don't fully have the awareness of it through your experience. I am basically like setting you up with the foundation to know that this is real. And then of course you start to notice as people get older, as they have their own experiences, that's where their own belief system in God, in that divine source, is now like tested, and it's now being strengthened because of the experiences that they're having. But let's be honest, if we were put on this earth in this day and age, right, or even like say like years before, like not like at the foundation level to where like you were in the purity form of life to then have those like divine experiences, but I'm talking about like as the world started to become more corrupt, because humans, you know, like they just do that. They find ways to manipulate and they find ways to control because it benefits them, because ego comes into play in all these things. So I'm trying not to ramble, but just so you guys are following me, when you are at that purity phase, right, you don't have to worry about all of that level of corruption. So you are a lot more receptive and able to experience God's energy without manipulation or without interference, versus like I said, as time continues to develop and you have like humans doing things out of their own selfish gain and trying to control and manipulate and all these things, that would basically like lessen your purity, if you get what I'm trying to say. Like that would lessen like your ability to operate from your higher self without a person like trying to make you feel smaller about yourself to like uplift themselves. That would basically eliminate like you feeling like at your highest consciousness, your high is just like, you know, like no one is there to like try to like deplete you or make you feel like, oh, you're a slave or you are not of status, or like this hierarchy like that being introduced into the picture now makes you not see yourself at the version of yourself that God will want you to see yourself. So now you are then like kind of codependent on a person above you because you are seeing them as your superior. So at that point, you are not really operating from your highest consciousness, which will kind of detach you from that purity of God consciousness. Okay, so I hope y'all following me. So with the introduction of religion, that basically lets you know that there is a divine source, there is something above you. But it's like when it comes to like that congregating level where you guys are discussing your divine experiences, that doesn't then mean that you go and like pedestalize another person. That is just you guys all like discussing, hey, these are the experiences that we're having to know that there is something above us. But at the end of the day, like humans are still at an equal playing field. You get what I'm saying? Like you are all still divine in your own way. But I feel like things kind of went like wrong for people, where people were taking on what other people were saying to believe in versus building their own experiences, their own connection to that God consciousness, to that divine experiences. And that's where I feel like control comes in, because some people basically like, it's like you're kind of like in a victim state, or you're in a state where you don't see yourself on that equal playing field. So you feel like someone is superior to you to give you that information, versus really understanding that you can also build your own experiences. And when it comes to religion, these are, like I said, social groups that are formed to basically congregate on the divine source that they are experiencing. So if different parts of the world have their own languages and their own understanding from their culture, that's going to look different amongst different religions, because Christianity, and you guys speak English, cannot flow with, let's say, Islam, where people are speaking Arabic. So when it comes to the whole debating of, oh, this religion is the right religion and this religion is wrong, if you don't believe in my religion then you're gonna go to hell, I just feel like it's so counterproductive, and it's so full of ego, and it's so full of just arrogance in a sense, because it's just like, how can you say that your religion is the one and only correct religion when it's just like, if you are in America, I'm gonna just use myself as a perfect example. I am African, right? My parents were born in West Africa and Mali, and over there Islam is the dominant religion. There's also Christianity and just other like spiritual practices, but ultimately like I grew up with an Islamic background, and that's like a whole nother video that I want to like dive into in like just different aspects, because where I'm from, Mali was colonized twice. Once by the Middle East, where you now have the Islamic religion there and just like the language of Arabic, but also by the French, where now in Mali the dominant language there is French. That's what they teach in schools. It's seen as a way for you to have like status. If you speak French, then it's like, okay, you have opportunities awaiting you. And y'all, I was devastated when I learned that the native language in Mali is being like kind of like wiped over with French because of the colonization. But that's not even the point that I'm trying to get at. What I'm trying to say is, in Mali, if you were born there, like I said, the common religion there to practice is Islam. So if you grew up there and they are teaching you of God, then you are learning it through the Islamic religion. I was not born in Mali. I was born in America. So what I commonly saw around me obviously was a mix of different religions, but you know, I had Islam around me, I had Christianity around me. But my parents, when they came here, they were young, so I feel like they were still finding themselves and didn't really have that like full-on connection with the religion, which is something that I talk about a lot of, where people are taught that you are this, but there is really no true like connection there with the religion. But basically what I'm trying to say is, as an American born African, how can I understand the Islamic religion if I don't speak Arabic? So if it comes down to me, like even learning about religion, hearing about it outside of myself, if I'm educating myself, if Christianity is the common religion that I see around me and it's spoken in English and I speak English, that is what I'm going to gravitate more towards because of understanding, because of dialect. Because something I will always say to myself is, if I'm African, how am I practicing a religion of a language that I don't even understand? Realistically, how am I supposed to understand that? That's like me going to any other religion, adopting their language in order to understand their religion. That's like me with Islam. I don't speak Arabic, so how am I supposed to understand the religion? Versus if you're in the Middle East and that is your native dialect, of course you're going to understand the Islamic religion because you speak the language. You get what I'm saying? So it's just like, if I was born in Africa, or if I was born and I grew up to learn Arabic, then yeah, maybe it would make sense for me to learn Islam because I understand the language, I understand Arabic. But if I don't understand Arabic, how am I supposed to connect with it? So I just see religion as a way of different areas in the world. You are creating religions with your social group. You are creating a social group of your people around you to really congregate and understand that connection with the divine source. So when it comes to my parents coming to America, they were pretty young. So like, I want to say in their like early 20s, they were still trying to find themselves and growing in their faith. But I feel like for me growing up, I never really had like this strong emphasis on just like practicing the Islamic religion the way that, you know, like I guess I see other people outside of myself doing it. Like, I refer to myself as a Muslim and I believed in God. I do believe in God, but it's like the older I got, the more that I started to have my own experiences and gain more knowledge, I realized like I don't really know much about the religion the way that, you know, people outside of myself do. And also just like the things that I was witnessing or hearing about from other people who are practicing the religion, it just never really made sense to me when I observed society and the way that they went about things. But I remember when I had turned 21, I had just moved into my own new first apartment, and I was just like, you know what, like I want to start to really learn God for myself and really just get into like the whole idea of religion and strengthen that. And I just came to like these constant roadblocks where I'm like, okay, Islam is the religion that my family practices, but if I'm trying to do this on my own, I don't speak Arabic, so how am I supposed to understand this? And I feel like as I started to just really learn about history and just like the whole colonization and all of that, I just had to be real with myself and ask myself, like, how am I supposed to like understand a religion that I don't understand the language? Like, I would have to literally learn the entire language for me to understand the religion. But as a person who lives in America and I speak English, if you were to hand me, let's say, a Bible, or if I have other people, content creators and things that I'm like listening to, and they're talking about God and they're speaking English, a language that I understand, I would then be able to understand what they're saying based off of the language. So that's when it started to click for me, like, okay, you're talking about God from a completely different religion than I grew up on, but what you're saying makes sense. So based on the programming that I feel like a lot of religious people, you know, like just spew out with, oh, my religion is the right religion, coming from an Islamic background, but being able to understand based on language the Christian religion. So if I'm then able to like understand what they are speaking of when it comes to like the teachings of God based on language, would I then be seen as wrong for like adopting that religion versus the Islamic religion, a religion that I don't understand because it's not in a language that I understand? Would I then be seen as, oh, I'm gonna go to hell because I'm not following this religion? And I feel like that's when it started to open up my mind to like, how can you then say that your religion is the only correct religion? And I'm not saying that all religious people from different religions think like that, but a lot of people do. Like, there's this unnecessary division where when you really think about it, like, if you are all talking about understanding that there is a divine source, that God exists, that you should be operating from God consciousness, that you should be operating out of morality and like just integrity, being a good person, being a humble person, understanding that like material things and just all these different ideologies that you start to learn are just like what's important and what's not important. If you have a ground level of understanding of that, why do you then try to make other religions seem like they're incorrect, or that like, you know, like they don't know what they're talking about, when it's just like, for one, if you take ego out of the conversation, if you take control and manipulation out of the conversation, and you look at things from a bigger picture, you start to understand that almost everyone is basically talking about God consciousness and talking about just like, you know, being a decent human being. You get what I'm saying? So honestly, that was the start of me feeling like, why do I have to put myself in a box or identify with one group when I get what everyone is saying? You get what I'm saying? So that was when I started to lean more into spirituality, because it doesn't box you into a specific category. It's understanding consciousness, it's understanding God consciousness, and it allows you to experience life and validate them from your own lens based off of what you are experiencing. You then start to gain your own wisdom. You also rely on the wisdom outside of yourself. You take into consideration other people's experiences, and you understand how it's all really all connected, without this way of moving of like, unless you are a part of my specific religion, then I'm not gonna listen to you, like, because you have nothing valuable to say, or we don't believe in the same God. When it's like, y'all, God is energy, God is all around us, and you just have to be operating from that level of consciousness, and not like this ego of division of, oh well, we don't practice the same thing, so we're not talking about the same thing. And like I said, I don't think religion is a bad thing. I think there is purpose in religion. I think it's a great way to really like help a person to understand the concept of a divine source before or even while they're having divine experiences and coincidental experiences, experiences that you cannot explain, but you feel, you see the things happening in your life, the way things move, and you're just like, wow, like I understand that there is a higher source, because this wouldn't just randomly happen in this timing, or you get what I'm saying? So like I said, I think there is good purpose in religion. Like I think especially in these times, it's helpful to like kind of have something that you can present to people with information as reference to understand and build that foundation. But I just feel like there comes a point where, you know, when you're open-minded, and I'm not saying like open, you know, like how they say like when you have too many options, like you start to like not really be focused. I'm not saying that, but it's really understanding that like life is a lot more complex than how humans want to try to like minimize it to understanding. Everything in life cannot be like shrunken down to like this fixed understanding. Like life is a lot more vast than we understand, and I think it really requires like just being open-minded to understand that, and not allow like, I don't know if you would say ego or like programming or fear to like keep you boxed in into like this one track way of thinking, or like not allowing yourself to experience, or even like just allowing yourself to create experiences for wisdom, and you know, like not being so codependent on other people to tell you what something is, how something should be, and allowing yourself to experience life while knowing that there is a divine source, and being conscious enough to pick up on the wisdom as you go on in life to make better sense of it as you go. Religion has its benefits. I just feel like with man, as in humans always have a way of corrupting things and using things as a way of control, manipulation, and to use as their own benefit. And when you have people who are trying to be like in that like dominant role, and there are people who are willing to be, or unknowingly created to be like victims, or created to not really understand like their strength through God, but just, you know, like their divinity and how much like power that they have. You are creating like this toxic dynamic, which can then to some people make religion seem like this bad thing, or like, you know, not bad, but you know, like just, it's, I don't know how to explain it. Like, to some people feel like religion is a box, and you are allowing yourself to be controlled, and you are allowing other people to interpret. That's what I'm trying to say. You are basically allowing people to interpret God for you without allowing yourself to interpret and learn God for yourself. That's basically what I'm trying to say. But I'm gonna end this video because it's long and I feel like I'm just rambling. But I would definitely love to continue just expanding upon this topic, because I'm just really interested in theology, understanding religion, spirituality, and just, yeah, because y'all, listen, there is definitely a source higher than us, but I think there is a level of like, don't make yourself smaller, or don't allow people to make you feel smaller than you actually are as a divine being. You get what I'm saying? But we're gonna get more into these topics because they're really interesting to me, and I'm like learning a lot. But anyways, y'all, I thank you for watching this video. And I know I did not say everything that I wanted to say in this video, but because I was rambling, I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what I said. Well, I know what I said, but I don't know what I didn't say that I wanted to say. And it's probably gonna come back to me, and we're gonna continue these topics. But anyways, y'all, I thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye.